Morning, children. Welcome back to another video session. In this video, I am going to explain the poem The Road Not Taken. In the previous video, I have talked about the poet and I gave the introduction of the poem and I have read the poem, also explained the rhyme scheme there. Before starting the explanation of the poem, let's recapitulate the previous content which was explained in the previous video, right? So let me talk about the poet once again. So Frost was born on March 26, 1874 in San Francisco, California. That means he is an American poet. He spent the first 11 years of his life there until his journalist father William Prescott Frost Jr. died of tuberculosis. Beginning in the 1897, Frost attended Harvard University but had to drop out after 2 years due to health concerns. So Frost spent his first 40 years as an unknown. He exploded on the scene after returning from England at the beginning of World War. He is World War I. He is winner of 4 Pulitzer Prizes. During his lifetime, Frost received more than 40 honorary degrees. Frost was awarded his first of 4 Pulitzer Prizes for his book, New Hampshire. It was written in 1924. He would subsequently win Pulitzers for collected poems 1931. And the next one, The Further Range, it was written in 1937. And the fourth one, A Witness Tree, it was written in 1943. Okay. In 1960, the American Congress awarded Frost the Congressional Gold Medal. This is a prestigious one. And he unfortunately died of complications from prostate surgery on January 29th, 1963. Now, let's take a glance on the most famous poems of Robert Frost. The Road Not Taken, The Death of the Hired Man, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, Acquainted with the Night, Fire and Ice, Mending Wall, Birches, Out, Nothing Gold Can Stay, and Home Burial. So these are a couple of his best famous works. Now I am going to explain the poem stanza by stanza. So look at the first stanza. I read the stanza first and I'll explain later, and also mention emphasize on the difficult words which are used in this stanzas also. The first stanza. 2 roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. So here we have a difficult word there. Diverged. What does the diverged means? What does the word mean? Separated and took a different direction. And yellow wood, one more word. A forest with a decomposing leaves. Another word, undergrowth. So this is a dense growth of plants and bushes means the forest. Okay, so in this stanza, the poet walking through a forest whose leaves have turned yellow in autumn comes to a fork in the road. Fork in the road. The speaker, regretting that he or she is unable to travel by both roads, since he is just one person, stands at the junction in the road for a long time and tries to see where one of the paths lead. However, the speaker can't see very far because the forest is dense and the road is not straight. So let me move on to the next stanza, second stanza. then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had won them really about the same. So here he has used fair and claim, grassy, wanted wear. These are words to be understood. As good as, what is fair? Fair is nothing but as good as the other one. So claim here, better option. So grassy is nothing but unused, wanted where it was, it had not been used. Okay, so in this stanza we can understand that the speaker takes other path, and supposing that it may even be the better option of two, since it is grassy and looks less used than other path, though now the speaker has actually walked on the second road. He thinks that in reality the two roads must have been more or less equally used. So he has chosen a path. He thought that that is the right path for him. Okay, so in the next stanza, the poet tries to tell us that, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So, trodden means, there's a word trodden here. What's the meaning of trodden here? Walked over. Okay, so in this stanza, the poet says that both the paths were similar that morning. Both had leaves on them, and no one had stepped on them, as they were still green in color. He decided that that day he would take one path and keep the other path for another day, although he knew that one way leads on to another way. He knew that he could not go back on the choice that he had made. Similarly, even in our life, once we choose an option, we must keep on moving ahead with that option only, and we never get a chance to come back and take the other option that we had left earlier. Okay, so the final stanza, and I'll read the fourth stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Okay, so this is very important stanza. By this stanza he wanted to conclude, and he wanted to give a message also. So in this stanza we can see the word sigh. Deep sigh is nothing but deep breath. Hence means here in the future. Okay, so the poet tried to conclude with this stanza. He says that in the future he will take a deep breath and say that once upon a time he had reached such a point in life that there were two options for him, and he traveled on that road which had been traveled upon by lesser number of people. This is a very strong message for all of us, that we should be very wise and be careful while making choices out of the options and that we have in our life, because our future depends on the choice that we make today, right? So we should be careful while we are taking decisions. So this is what is message through this poem. So what do you understand by this poem, children? In this poem, just life is full of choices, and while choosing one path, we should be very careful, and we don't know what happens in the future, so we cannot get complete information about our career and about our life. We cannot pretend, right? While we are making choices, we should be very careful. This is what the message the poet wanted to give us through this poem. So let's discuss the poetic devices or literary devices in the next video session. Uh, so until they read the poem once again and try to understand. If you don't understand, you just make a note that, and you can ask in the classrooms once again. Okay. See you, children. Bye bye.